All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, ended up doing a Palicast with Telreyne a few days ago. As you can see, it says the 25th of March down here, and he posted this on the 21st. Right after we got done with this Palicast, virtually within a matter of hours, my internet over here in China basically died, so I didn't have the ability to post a link, basically saying, hey, go check out the video, here's where it is. I think this is Palicast number 5. I'm going to write it down. I'm probably going to put in the title like Palicast number 4, 5, question mark. I could probably look it up, so I'll probably put the accurate number, maybe 5 or whatever. So totally going to do a link in the description. But the more interesting... Okay, I guess I got to talk about the Palicast first. I want to talk about something else really bad. The thing that we talked about in this Palicast was mostly we discussed, I guess it's right here, we talked about my thoughts on TBC, why I don't really like TBC. I wanted to run my ideas of why I don't like TBC past like Telreyne to make sure that I wasn't like mentally retarded or anything, like because he has a lot more experience with TBC PvP than I do. And basically my conclusion is that in classic World of Warcraft, I have to use like, 80, 90, even 100% of my brain in order to effectively win against certain classes and certain matchups and certain PvP scenarios. And in classic TBC, I don't really get that. I feel like I can just be like a deep holy paladin, like, be like semi-mentally retarded, like use like 10% of my brain and still have like an 80% win rate, especially in arenas. And that kind of depresses me. That makes me feel like I'm going from playing chess to playing checkers. But, oh yeah, the other thing that we talked about was we ended up ranking eventually in this video. He should have like an S tier list or something eventually here. Yeah, it was kind of scuffed. Yeah, so we started talking about where you rank, like, this is classic WoW. Phase 6, how do you rank, like, Deep Ret, Ret Reckoning, Holy Reckoning, Holy Shock, Holy Command, like that's Holy Shock with Seal of Command, and a bunch of the other different paladins. Now, I eventually point out in the video that I really don't like ranking the paladins via like A tier, B tier, S tier, and that kind of stuff. And the reason for that is because although certain paladins are definitely superior to other paladins, like objectively that they're better, meaning that they'll have a better win rate against just about any class you put them up against. In the vast majority of circumstances, they'll do just fine under battlefield conditions, battleground conditions. They'll do just fine in like a 2v1, a 3v1, like that kind of thing. Obviously, any class with Reckoning becomes Super Saiyan in a 3v1 scenario, whereas classes that don't have Reckoning begin suffering if they're engaging multiple opponents at the same time. I don't like ranking them this way because I think at the end of the day, and I ran this by Telreyne by the end of the video, and he ended up agreeing with me. The simple fact of the matter is that all the paladin specs are technically viable as long as you're wearing the right gear, right? Like all the paladin specs are technically viable as long as you're wearing the right gear. Certain paladin specs will be like 10% better performance than the other paladin specs. Especially if you break it down by phase and so forth and so on. But the simple fact of the matter is that it doesn't matter, right? Like that 10% combat difference is the difference between you having like a 70% win rate in a matchup versus like a 65% win rate in the matchup. You're already perfectly fine, and you can perfectly handle it. You can perfectly navigate the situation to a victory, even if you're a suboptimal class. And I eventually bring this up in the video when I talk about what I think you can get away with in your gearing. Like the vast majority of paladins, they fuck up in their gearing. The way I look at it is, it's like you have one piece of gear leeway to do what you want. Meaning that if I was the most well-optimized best spec that I could possibly be in the game, like I'm a perfectly well-optimized Holy Reckoning, or I'm a perfectly well-optimized Ret Reckoning, I could take any piece of my gear, with the exception of my weapon, obviously, and I can just remove it from my character, and I will still be combat viable. Like I can still navigate the battlefield scenario to most likely a conclusion. I'll have above a 50% win rate, blah, 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 blah. I can literally fuck up my gearing to the tune of one piece of my gear is completely missing and I'll be fine. How this translates to the other specs that are suboptimal compared to the best spec, right, is that you suddenly have to be much more careful with your gearing. You have to hit your optimization of your gear because you're on a tighter window for viability, if that makes any sense, right? So if the absolute best spec can still perform under just about any condition, missing like one piece of gear, any piece of gear, helm, chest, whatever, like just a ring, get rid of it, right? Then every other spec in the game that is suboptimal can still be just as performative, even as long as they got their gear decently well situated. And you probably noticed that in Classic World of Warcraft. The other aspect of the situation is that me and Telreyne and Drakova, even to a far greater extent, we think about the matchups and we try to have as high of a win rate as possible in the 1v1 at the highest level of play, if that makes any sense. But the vast majority of people you're going to encounter in World of Warcraft PvP are not going to be up to snuff for the highest level of play, if that makes any sense. So even if you have if you're using a suboptimal spec and your gearing is suboptimal, you're still probably going to have a pretty good PvP experience in Classic World of Warcraft, just because the vast majority of people you're going to run up against just aren't on your level. Like, they're making their own mistakes with their gearing and their play and all that kind of stuff, right? But at the highest level, to be perfectly honest, if you notice us talk, like as a Holy Reckoning Paladin, I'll talk about how I'm very comfortable in certain 1v1 matchups. And as a Ret Reckoning Paladin, Telreyne will talk about how he's very comfortable in certain matchups. And then we'll have Drakova and Telreyne will talk about how if they're playing deep Ret, like Control Ret, they're very comfortable in certain matchups. Well, that comfort comes from the fact that we're so well optimized for the matchup with our spec and our gear that we can actually start making mistakes, or RNG could not go our way and we're perfectly fine. You remove a piece of gear from us and suddenly we don't have the option to make mistakes anymore, or we're a little bit more RNG reliant, but we can still get the job done. We just don't feel comfortable anymore, if that makes any sense. In the same vein, if you take a suboptimal spec like Holy Shock, or a Holy Shock with Command, or some kind of deep prop Paladin, or anything else, like a deep Ret Paladin, Spell Power, deep Ret Paladin, something like that. Something that is technically suboptimal to a Holy Reckoning Paladin or a Ret Reckoning Paladin. You're not going to feel comfortable in that matchup, but you're still 100% viable. You can still get the job done if that makes any sense at all. So that's basically what the video is about. Feel free to go check it out. I'll definitely go and figure out what the Palicast number is. I'm going to end this video here, and I'm going to make another video and post it talking about the thing that I actually want to talk about today, which is I may have found a Paladin for Classic TBC that is it's on par with the Holy Shock Paladin. It's an Argent Defender Paladin that uses a two-handed weapon, but he uses spell power gear and he seal twists. And I'm going to talk about that in the next video. And the reason why I'm going to make that video is I need information. Now that the TBC beta is out, I've been messing around with it a little bit on apparently I can't use the YouTube or the internet, but I can get on the Endless server and dick around with it a bit. I can't show you some video footage right now, but yeah, I need some information on the subject, so feel free to go check that video out. Stats-wise, it hits about 700 DPS, but that's like a lot of that damage is holy damage, which makes it objectively better than a Ret Paladin. A deep Ret, a full glass cannon deep Ret Paladin. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, full glass cannon, deep Ret Paladin struggles to get over 700 DPS, and it's mostly physical DPS. This thing is chilling at about 700 DPS with like holy damage. It has more HP, it has more healing, it has more sustainability, it has reckoning to boot. It is an objectively superior Paladin to the deep Retribution Paladin. There's a lot of nuance there, right? But barring all the nuance, where this Paladin is better than that Paladin, it seems objectively superior. It's got compared to the Holy Shock Paladin on paper so far, she seems to be in the same ballpark as the monstrous Holy Shock Paladin. It's got as much, if not more, effective HP. It's got as much, if not more, healing sustain capability, mostly in its stuns. And it's very mana efficient. There's a lot to love with this Paladin spec. It's basically a Holy Reckoning Paladin, or as close as we're going to get to a Holy Reckoning Paladin in TBC. And even though I haven't been able to, I haven't got good with it yet, but so far it's been performing. But anyways, I'm going to make that video, end this video here. Go check out the Palicast and Deus Volt, boys.